What's going on, guys? It's been a while, but did you know that there's 20,000 people who have officially subscribed to this channel, which is amazing. So as a little small thank you gesture of like just eternal gratefulness that I have for all of you, I'm going to be answering some of the questions that you guys sent in through Instagram, and that's what this video is about. Let's do it. What a great question to start out with. So this comes from Shamli, and she and I go way back. Basically, I started posting on YouTube primarily as a motive of self-reflection. I wanted to share my experiences, and I personally knew that going through med school was going to be some of the most transformative years of my life, and I would feel better if I could reflect on them. And most people have like journals when they reflect because people are really good at writing. I'm not one of those people. So I was like, you know what I'll do? I'll just vlog, talk about my experiences, and if it helps other people, great. But if it doesn't, at the very least, I have a documentation of how med school impacted me. And at the very end of the day, I can be happier for that. You know, I have a vlog from when I interviewed at Yale. I have the vlog from my white coat ceremony. I have the vlog from, my first anatomy lab. So having all those mementos in one place for me is really meaningful. Not to mention that when I personally learn something, I love doing like teach back. So kind of going through what I learned and seeing like, oh, maybe this will help other people because I wish I knew this. So I started YouTube primarily to, share what I learned and a way to reflect. And, it's kind of grown since then. It's been phenomenal. So thank you for asking that, Shamli. Hopefully it answered your question. This next question right here, best and worst parts of medical school. The best part of medical school is being here. It is surreal, right? Because I feel like the biggest threshold in medicine is actually getting into medical school. And so once you're in, it's a sigh of relief, but also a huge privilege, right? I live right across the hospital, and I can call that my second home now. I've seen patients, I've worked with patients, I've helped treat patients. I am slowly learning the ropes. And getting into medical school is the biggest threshold. And once you're here, it's almost like pinching yourself. I was actually just talking to my friends about this today. It's surreal that I'm essentially almost a doctor. And every time you have to kind of humble yourself and remind yourself like, holy cow, you're doing this. You're gonna be a doctor. And getting into medical school, you have to remind yourself that because it's so easy to get caught up in the weeds. Damn, dude, you did it. You're a badass mofo. Like you did this thing that is already so hard. And all you have to do now is kind of, jump through the hurdles. Which brings me to the worst part of medical school, which is 100% the hurdles. And personally for me, it was step 1 and step 2. Studying for those exams, an 8 and 9 hour exam respectively, is not easy. Probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do. It took a huge toll on my mental health. It's tough, guys. Medicine is not easy. You're gonna see more suffering. Watch this video if you haven't already, where I just kind of broke down 5 harsh truths that I've had to deal with in medical school. But there are a lot of bad parts, and personally for me, studying for step 1 and step 2 really took a massive toll on my mental health. And so definitely wish I could do that over and learn a bit more from it. But for all you who are going into dedicated, definitely make sure you prioritize your mental health. But thank you for this question. Hopefully I answered it. Yo, this question is from my homeboy, Sean. He and I actually met pretty early on in YouTube as well. So as you can tell, like I actually love getting to know many of you. And I actually do know most of you who sent in these questions. And it's always so great to actually make these connections. But Sean, this is a great question. So one of the best adaptations that med school has made because of COVID has been going virtual. So when you're studying, at least your first 2 years of medical school, the good part is now it used to be in-person lectures, but they've been transitioned into virtual. And I think this is really important because I think they're going to realize like, oh, a lot of these things don't necessarily need to be in person, right? Like a lot of these lectures don't necessarily need to be in person. We can kind of automate some of these things, and that's great. One of the more difficult transitions in medical school because of the whole virtual thing has actually been the clinical rotations. So when COVID was spiking in Connecticut, rotations became entirely virtual, and that kind of defeats the purpose of being in the hospital, being able to take care and see patients. But I think as cases have come back down, we have restarted rotations in the hospital, which I think is essential, right? Because I think even as medical students, having any training in this type of pandemic situation is essentially going to be very important later on down the line. Because when does this happen? It happens maybe 2-3 times in someone's life. And as future medical professionals, I think we owe it to patients to know how to deal with this. This is hella funny. I love this question. So one class that I never had to take, but I took it anyway, and I have no idea why I did this, was multivariable calculus. Like, I look back on that now, I'm like, why did I do that? But it was interesting, right? It's fascinating to know that more than one variable can exist in calculus, which was a thing. But one class that I never took, but I wish I had, was definitely CS. So I know all of you may know Ali Abdal. Ali always talks about how coding is one of the most underrated assets in the world. So if you know how to code, you can do so much. And especially in fields like healthcare, where so many of us study science, and because of that, we don't get a chance to study the other science, which is computer science. There actually is a lot of room for innovation for people who know how to code and know the medicine, because those tend to be relatively mutually exclusive fields until now, because there are slowly people who are going to know how to code who will also become doctors, and that number will increase. So if I could go back, I would definitely try to learn how to code, because I think that's a huge asset. Oh, this is a cute one. So in terms of personal life, both of my parents are probably the greatest parents in the world. And I am, beyond grateful to have a family that I do. So my mom is quote unquote like stricter, but she's like the softie. You know what I mean? So exteriorly, she'll be the one screaming and like being like, yo, why are you being stupid? But at the same time, she's also going to be like, you're grounded, but also you're not. Like I'll like prod at her and she'll like, oh, I can't stay mad at you. On the other hand, my dad almost always chill, like chilling like a villain, but when he's pissed, he is pissed. So you don't want to get on his bad side. So that's, in that regard, I can say my mom is more strict most of the time, like on like less serious shit. But when my dad gets mad, ooh, that's we did something wrong. So they're both strict in their own way, I guess, is the way of answering this question. This is another fun one too. So I've met a lot of Yaleys, undergrads at Yale, and I have to say my favorite undergraduate is a girl named Alice Zhao and her boyfriend Nick. They definitely keep me a lot of company and help keep me sane, so they definitely wanted this shout out. So thank you, Alice and Nick, for being the sanity I need at times. So this is from Ted, yet another person who I know quite well through YouTube only. So Ted, I will say that I don't even feel qualified to answer this question because I personally don't think I'm a YouTuber. But with that being said, I think one of the biggest tips I've gotten from Ali Abdal has definitely been to post consistently and invest in good camera equipment. The second of which I have not done yet. I'm definitely going to try to get a camera, high enough quality videos, and posting consistently, connecting with your viewers, and ideally showing and bringing something of value to the table, right? Because what is YouTube? It's an economic transaction to a certain extent. People will watch your videos if they get something out of it, whether that's in the form of a meaningful connection, whether that's in the form of feeling like, oh my God, I empathize with you, whether that's in the form of flashcard tips, which seems to be what I've been able to do. So what it is bring value, post consistently, and really invest in yourself with some good equipment. I think those three things are definitely going to be pivotal, and I still have to act on some of them, as you can tell. Yet another great question, and one that I actually hold very close to my heart, because I feel like I complain a lot about most things, and I think all of us do. It's a human tendency to see the negatives in life without being able to focus on the positive, because we always want to strive to be better. But with all that being said, a few tips that I always like to do to remind myself how lucky I am and blessed I am is to look back on the day, and if I'm having a particularly crappy day, look at all that's gone right. And if that really does mean coming down to like the bare bone basics, like, oh my God, I have a mom and dad who love me. Oh my God, I'm so lucky to be studying what I am studying. I'm so lucky to have the support system that I have. I'm so lucky to have a roof over my head. These are all very stupid things that I know anyone will be like, wait, this sounds so superficial. But I say this to myself all the time because I feel like human tendency is to always look at stuff you don't have and like let that bother you. At the end of the day, I keep reminding myself of these basic things, especially when I feel like I'm upset. And I remind myself, yo, life's okay. You're gonna be great. Stay in the moment here, reflect on all that's good, and definitely use the things you're upset about to motivate yourself. But don't let it completely demotivate you to the point that you're not productive at all. Oh, this is a really nice question. I'm glad you think I'm on top of everything and able to do these things, but that's not really the case. Everything comes with trade-offs, and in this case, it just looks like I do all of these things. But I think the one tip I do have for you is to come up with very concrete things that matter to you. What really matters to you? So the reason I run is because my health matters a lot to me, and running is one of the few things that brings me fulfillment physically. The reason I post on YouTube is, again, it's very mentally satisfying for me. It gives me a chance to give back, and it's actually one of my biggest ways to reflect on my personal journey. Another way I do that is through the podcast. So my podcast is another means of self-expression and something that I'm very interested in, especially as my identity as a Desi American person. And so these three things are things I hold very close to me, and so I do them. And it all comes at a trade-off, right? So what are the trade-offs in my end? I may not be doing as well academically as some other people, because for me, I'm just like, okay, I'll learn my stuff. I won't learn it really well. I don't want to be the top 1%, but I'll learn it well enough. So all of these things come at trade-offs, and I know it seems like I'm able to do everything, but it's really just a focus on three things really that I care a lot about and I hold very dear to my heart and I prioritize, and it often comes at the expense of other things. Like, for example, I have an economics test tomorrow and I'm filming this video because this matters to me. So it's gonna come at the expense of a few points on the exam for sure. Great question. I'm going to do a full video on this one, but for all y'all watching, the specialty that I will likely be pursuing is going to be internal medicine, which is a very generalized specialty. It's kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none, which is exactly me. Like, I love everything about the human body, and I have been I've had a tough time finding like one organ I want to focus on. So I'm like, let's just do everything. And that's internal medicine, which is like, yes, perfect. I am actually really passionate about it. Damn. This is definitely going to be the last question because this is getting way too philosophical for me. But I like it. I like where you're going. And I think it's a really important question that everyone should ask themselves. And am I happy? I am. I feel like I am very happy. I'm happy with where I am in my life. I'm happy with the people I've chosen to surround myself with. I'm happy that I've consistently push myself to grow and learn. And even though there are always days, times, periods of time where it just seems like life is shit and tough, I think those are the commonalities, right? Like, suffering is such an innate part of the human experience that even as it's occurring, we should learn to look back and reflect on it. And then, after it's over, or even as it's over, realize like that shouldn't necessarily stop us from being happy. That was deep, but I guess I've gone through some troubling months, and I think definitely I've come out of it stronger, and I'm happy that I went through them because I'm a stronger person because of them. And moving forward, always counting my blessings, being glad that I have you guys as my family, my family as my family, a loving mom, dad, and sister, beyond blessed. So I am happy, and thank you all for these questions. It really means the world to me that I am able to help you guys, and there's 24,000 of you, which is crazy. So let's continue growing. I genuinely appreciate everything you guys have ever done, and I hope that we continue hanging out like this pretty frequently. Thank y'all for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.